a commission set up by the Commonwealth prepared a report that has elicited a great deal of interest across the world. The commission, headed by Professor Sen, Nobel Prize winner, covered an enormous amount of ground. It suggested initiatives to ensure that there is reconciliation and tolerance among and between nations and between communities. We wanted to find out what the Commonwealth has done regarding these initiatives and these suggestions, and what better person to turn to than the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Ambassador Sharma. Ambassador Kamalesh Sharma, I'd like to ask you first and foremost, it's been 2 years since this report was published. What are the kind of initiatives that have been taken by the Commonwealth, particularly in one respect which has received a great deal of mention in the report, namely that America, the report says, had enjoyed an enormous amount of sympathy after the 9/11 attacks, but that sympathy was eroded very quickly, and that therefore there was some need to try and restore that credibility. The new Obama administration is in place, and to some extent there is, you can see, some positive moves in that direction. Has the Commonwealth done something to accelerate this process?
The report isn't a country-specific report or an incident-specific report. What it talks about are social, political, cultural situations of great tension within societies, and how can they be ameliorated and diffused. And it's a very sophisticated report because it doesn't say that attention is particularly caused by one factor which is predominant, but in every society the situation is complex. But the situation that exists is comparable. For instance, if you deny the complexity of personalities in people and you try and reduce them into, let's say, only a faith-related personality, then you find that you are making that individual more shallow than an individual normally is. So respect all the depths and all the multiple personalities of an individual. Faith may be one, its interest in politics is another one, the type of literature that person reads is another one, the interest it takes in sports, the traveling dimensions it has, the interest in cuisine is really endless. So that's a very humanist report in that sense. It says that we should work towards multiple identities, and the more you work towards multiple identities, you will find that these other limited identities, their danger will be limited. Another point they make is, look at the ways in which these differences are being mediated. For instance, what's happening in the media, what's happening among youth, what's happening in education, what's happening with the women, and also look at what are the other motivating factors that may be behind the position, which are related, let's say, to a loss of influence, loss of power, and many of these other factors. So it has many elements in it. It's been seen as a very important contribution.
On the question of terrorism, the report says that one must probe the underlying causes that lead to terrorism. Do you subscribe to the view that root causes must be addressed before you begin containing terrorism?
I think you have to detach the search for root causes, because obviously what it is that's producing disaffection, what is it that is producing a sense of humiliation, a sense of difference, of non-exclusion is very important in all societies. But it has to be differentiated from a kind of a spurious argumentation that this can be built into a justification for terrorism. So we deny completely that there can be any form of justification for a terrorist act. But certainly we can look at root causes in every society, whatever they are, of why certain people or segments of population, for whatever reason, should feel excluded from that society.
The report has some very interesting suggestions to make regarding the participation of women in public life. In particular, it urges the Commonwealth to look at successive models where women have been able to participate in public life, and has called upon the Commonwealth to share these models among its members. Has that been done?
Yes, in several ways. We are very strong, for instance, about women entrepreneurship. One of our distinct successes, for instance, has been Bangladesh and other places, because empowerment in women has to mean also that you are able to do what the male population is able to do. Not just a strengthening of what is called a gender role. So that is one. The other is placement of women and encouraging member states to have women advanced in two areas particularly. One, the legislature, and to encourage them to come up into the field of politics. India is, of course, a big example in the grassroots, and the other is in the field of judiciary. And some of the, for instance, Ghana has the first woman chief justice and so on. Women must feel that their field is open in an equal way. As far as men are concerned, women concerned, there should be no difference in opportunity. We very strongly feel that although development is a multi-pronged pursuit, we know in development theory you test various things, but if you needed to have a silver bullet or a litmus test, I would say go and see what is happening to the women in their society. If you see that things like nutrition, child nutrition and women's nutrition, infant mortality, maternal mortality, literacy for women, opportunities for women, and all the things we have mentioned, political participation is going up. That means that society is very healthy, and every other aspect of society will fit into this. And the converse is also true. Even more important for the girl child.
Secretary, there is an extraordinarily interesting part in this report concerning the preparation of youth to handle the problems that they're likely to face in the future. It calls for a number of initiatives to train youth, to give them the requisite skills, to make them confident that they can farm the future. The Commonwealth has a youth program. And through this youth program, have any such initiatives been implemented?
Yes, absolutely. It's a very old youth program. We use the youth program for several purposes: educational, social, and political. The Commonwealth strongly believes that the youth is going to inherit the 21st century. The youth is also going to live mostly through this century. The problems we have been unable to resolve as adults are all going to be visited upon the shoulders of the youth. It is commonly now understood that we are faced with existential problems in this century. A writer has observed that there is no real problem of this century which can be postponed to the next century. This simply means that the burden of expectation on the youth is so heavy that we must be mindful that all the support systems that we are creating, the belief which we are creating in the youth, is equal to empowering them to be able to manage these. Now we try and do it through our youth programs as much as we can, and these are related to their being able to take interest in politics. In the last youth summit, we encouraged governments not simply to have a youth department, but to mainstream youth activities in everything they do. We always have youth, or at least we try to have one very young person in our observer missions, which are very adult exercises. We have a certification of youth workers because we want to give intrinsic strength to these societies. What is youth worker training capable of doing? And this has now been accepted globally, a kind of a benchmarking of how good you are in youth training. We encourage that in youth entrepreneurship, you must be able to square all the areas like education, like your trade and your industry departments, your corporations, the private side. Make them believe, the youth believe they're not just job seekers, they're job creators, they can be social entrepreneurs, they can be professionals in their own right for a very simple reason. You take the statistic of any member country, indeed any country out of the Commonwealth as well, not more than 20 or 30% can secure jobs when they get out. And all that optimism gets wasted. So we in the Commonwealth feel that we've done a lot over the last 2 or 3 decades in this field. We are now, I'm going to Chandigarh next week. We're going to have a workshop, for instance, on conflict resolution. How is it that young people can perceive and ameliorate and address conflicts they see happening at a social level in which they operate before they become a problem for the society itself? And there are other programs in which the youth is up front in society. There are many of these, and we're now getting them to specialize. For instance, the youth here, we want them to specialize in grassroots democracy. The youth elsewhere, depending on, we have in Guyana, you have in Solomon Islands, you have in Africa, you have in India. What is it that they can specialize in? They want to use technology eventually from the gains we have made to disseminate and proliferate all these best examples and lessons learned. The one great tool which we have, which gives a silver lining to all the problems that we have, is the power of dissemination, useful knowledge, almost instantly. So to create useful knowledge in a youth center, and disseminate it by other means. I hope that in the time to come, the Commonwealth will be known for the extraordinary work, as it already is, which it is doing in the field of youth.
That also comes right round to ask the question, what about improving the quality of education? That's at the heart of many of these debates, is poor teacher training, lack of adequate infrastructure, and so on and so forth. What is the government trying to do in order to ameliorate this particular condition of education?
I have a feeling that it's very difficult to overcome the kind of deficits and shortages which you find in developing countries in all development areas, including education, by conventional means. How many teachers can you produce? What kind of a budget do you need for that? The rate at which your population is expanding, is it feasible to do it? I think it is very sensible now to use the tool of technology and recognize the fact that the digital answer is the bridge to the development divide now. So the E word is now prefixing so many of the development challenges. E-education, e-health, e-commerce, e-administration, e-governance, e-everything. Which makes it necessary for you to have a coherent and a holistic view of what you're doing. If this is your program for youth and for health, it cannot advance very much if you don't have a matching program for ICT penetration, teaching the youth these skills. It all hangs and belongs together in one cluster. The other institution we are using is an institution which is, I think, at the cutting edge of pioneering and innovating activities. It's called the Commonwealth of Learning. And the Commonwealth of Learning, for instance, is already producing modules on respect and understanding, which is what must go immediately now in schools and colleges from this report, which influences the thinking of young people right at that stage. We have one pilot project here in which they do what learning do farmers require. Farmers don't have much literacy in many parts, they don't have these tools, so what they do is, right, in this kiosk center, once a week, all of you collect, and we are going to relay information on the problems you have. Here are the experts collected here, you push back your questions. This is a way of innovatively finding an answer to a situation in which conventional answers cannot be found.
This report, Secretary General, was prepared much before the economic meltdown. Do you feel that the kind of horrific social problems that we are likely to face are going to be vindicated by the initiatives mentioned in this report? Do a certain number of points need to be finessed? Do you propose an updating of this report in the light of the economic meltdown?
The updating will be in terms of experience. This is a blueprint which we have in a roadmap, but we're going to get enormous feedback in the way in which we are implementing it in different settings. So I hope that the Commonwealth will always be updating lessons learned and making it richer and making it deeper. About the meltdown you're talking about, I would say that any society when challenged would find that the insights of these reports in fact are becoming more pertinent rather than less. Because we thought we had an environment crisis on our hands. When I took over as Secretary General about 9 months ago, well, I thought that we have a Victoria plan of action. What can I do about it? Within 2 months, there was an energy crisis. The energy prices shot up. There was budgetary problems everywhere. There's pressure on the economy of every member state. While we were wondering what can we do here, we had a food security crisis, in which people said, food is expensive, and because energy is expensive, it's different, fertilizer is expensive. Before we had this triple thing on our head, we had the financial crisis. So you have to appreciate the fact that we are in a state of breakdown of our conventional governance mechanisms in the world. We are dying to a world which we had created, to which answers cannot be found in the 21st century. The underpinning of what your ethos and orientation must be in the face of all of these stresses is really at the heart of this report. How can we make the stress which is building up inside you, how can you manage it and handle it better, will be by the means of the wisdom in this report. I call it a wisdom document, which helps in the globalization of wisdom. We've seen the globalization of so many things, factors of production, civil society, uncivil society. What we need above all is a globalization of wisdom. I think this report is primarily a report of exercising the wisdom function.
On a different note, Secretary General, India is going to host the Commonwealth Games in 2010. What's the kind of message that you want to send to lovers of sports and athletics in India?
The Commonwealth Games are the signature of the Commonwealth. There are two things by which the Commonwealth is understood and appreciated immediately all over the world. Both of them incidentally youth-related for the major parts. One is the Commonwealth Games, the other is the Commonwealth Scholarships and Fellowships Program. So I've had long discussions now and before. I'm delighted to say that the government is giving it the attention which it deserves. A lot of items will always come up in a democracy, as they should. Is this on stream? Is this according to the time plan which you had? And I think this is a great corrective in a democratic society, that things will be in place. I've been assured that that will be the case, but I'm very anxious that when the games take place, they should have a penumbra of other youth-related activities, so that it's not just games-focused, but youth-focused, with a whole panoply of interesting things for the youth which we can also predict.
And it's on that cheerful note that we conclude this discussion with Ambassador Sharma, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the first Indian to hold that post. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.